to another great topic, okay? And that's the Packers, baby. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. And this is a great headline. I think producer Ben or even you, Pat, came up with it. And that's no Pack, no. And we also know that's a little play off the famous Go Pack Go. But there wasn't much go there in week one for Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
No, they weren't going anywhere. They were stuck in mud. I mean, I think, they lost to the Saints 38-3. And the Saints have a good defense. Jameis Winston, he might be in – I don't think – we might not have talked about this enough. He might be in the perfect situation to kind of rein in his turnover-happy kind of style and just enough where Sean Payton, who still likes to throw the ball down the field, and Winston does too, he might be in the perfect place to kind of have the best of both worlds there. It's only one game, but, Jameis Winston didn't throw for a ton of yards. I think he only threw for like 150 yards, but had 5 touchdowns, did what he needed to do. The Saints defense is good. They still have a ton of good players on that side of the ball. They were good last year. They're good again this year. But the Packers weren't ready to play this game. I think that's plain and simple. And now you have to question, was everything that went on with Aaron Rodgers in the offseason, the fact that Rodgers was not there in minicamp, the fact that Rodgers came to training camp kind of late, is there a sort of hangover effect from that to this first game? I mean, was Aaron Rodgers ready to play? Did he get enough reps in the offseason? I know that's crazy to say about a future Hall of Famer who's still, he's the MVP of the league last year, but he didn't look right either. He was, I think it was 15 for 28, 133 yards and 2 interceptions. I mean, he just didn't play well against a good defense. But again, it just seemed like they weren't ready to go. And if you're the Packers right now, and you remember what happened last season in the NFC Championship game, how you were at home and you lost to the Bucs, and everybody thought the Packers were going to go to the Super Bowl. They go for the field goal late in the game, and they should be chomping at the bit to start this season. And they just didn't seem like they were ready to go, and that they even wanted to be out there. So, I mean, for this Packers team, I think they'll bounce back in week 2, but just surprising effort, on top of the score. I'm just surprised that they got throttled this much by the Saints.
I think you're 100% correct that, Aaron Rodgers wasn't ready to play, but I'm not blaming him. I'm blaming the general manager and the front office for this debacle of a situation that they created in the offseason the last 2 years that has put Aaron Rodgers in this situation where he said he didn't even want to play for the team. And then they had to, jump through hoops to even get him to sign this 1-year contract to come back. And we all know it's just a 1-year contract, and he's moving on next year to probably a new team. And I don't know if you've seen it, but just over the last few days or maybe even the last week, he did an interview with NFL Fox and really flat out came out and said, they drafted a quarterback. They drafted a young quarterback, and they were ready to replace me, and now I'm ready to move on. And, it's really one of those things where he finally came out and said it, beyond some of the other interviews that he's had where he's flat out said he was unhappy with the moves that the general managers made, or, the attitude and the treatment of veteran players and stuff like that. So he's been very vocal and very honest in his situation. But I think, inevitably that whole, whirlwind tornado of a situation that was created did not obviously help this football team. And it is a worst case scenario right now because they looked horrible there in week 1. I do think obviously this team will bounce back. They'll get better as the season goes on. I think Aaron Rodgers is obviously going to play a lot better. He doesn't want people questioning his capabilities and also his will to play at this point, especially moving on to a new team. But I do think, this team will bounce back. But I think, the situation that was created in the offseason, this is what you get from it right now, that, Aaron Rodgers wasn't ready to play in the offseason, didn't report to camp early enough, didn't play many reps, like you said, in the preseason. And now he was kind of getting his preseason reps out in a game that actually mattered, which was a week 1 game in the NFL. And as we know, all these games matter extremely a lot in the NFL when we're talking about playoff seeding or even making the playoffs. And granted, we do have 17 games this year, which is obviously historic, but still, it's not one of those things where you don't want to be like, hey, we're going to take 5 or 6 games to kind of bounce out of this and get ready, because at that point you will be out of playoff contention because nobody's going to go on a run there, and injuries are going to happen, among other things. Like, look at the Baltimore Ravens. and what they're having to deal with. So it's just really one of those things where clearly I think the whole team wasn't ready to play. Obviously, their leader wasn't ready to play. But like I said, I'm blaming the general manager and the front office for this situation that's been created.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I do think that, the cupboard is not bare for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, they have probably the best wide receiver, one of the best wide receivers in the league, in Devontae Adams. They had a couple of other solid receivers around him in Vante Scanling. They signed Randall Cobb in the offseason, the guy that Aaron Rodgers really wanted because they used to be teammates a few years ago. Yep. They could probably use another dynamic tight end, although Tanyan's pretty good. Aaron Jones is a top 10 running back in the NFL. I mean, and they have a good defense. So, it's not like, in Tom Brady's last season with the Patriots, one of the things he was upset about was that, they tried to trade Gronk a couple of years before, then Gronk retired. They just had Edelman, and they didn't really, they drafted N'Keal Harry. He was injured for most of that season. They traded for Mohamed Sanu. He didn't work out. They just didn't have guys. They got Antonio Brown, and that whole thing blew up in their face. So they didn't really acquire weapons for Brady. With Rodgers, the guy was there. All his guys were there. He has guys to throw to, and he has a good defense. So, I think he's in position to have a good season, and then, whatever happens next year, he'll be out of there. So, on the one hand, I understand why he's upset about the Jordan Love thing, just like Brady probably wasn't too happy about the Jimmy Garoppolo thing. But, he has a team around him in place to go win a Super Bowl. So I think that he's got to kind of knuckle down here and understand that he's got one more season as a Packer, and you got to kind of figure it out. Folks, if you like this show, you're watching it right now on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. That's Comeback Sports on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel, Comeback Sports. And then all the cut-ups that our awesome producer, Ben Kudo, puts together after the show, that'll all filter to your YouTube channel. You don't have to go search for it. It's just right there in your subscriptions.